These are places where people live. These are places that are part of the sort of the nation's soul. What do you think about some kind of land deal for peace?
I don't think that we'd go with that. I don't believe that Zelensky would go with that. I know that Ukrainians would not go with that. Today I saw kind of a meme online, and it said "Ми втомлені, але ми незламні," which means we are tired, but we are unbreakable.
Today, as you'll have heard, marks the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So it's a good opportunity to step away from the coverage of the ongoing geopolitical consequences of Putin's war and remind ourselves of the real human cost inflicted upon Ukrainians. Well, Olia Hercules is a Ukrainian food writer and chef whose family has been torn apart by this war. She joins me now. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Really good to have you in the studio. Your parents lived 80 miles away from the Crimean border and they didn't want to leave. Where are they now? How have their last 3 years been?
Yeah, that's right. My family is from Kakhovka, which is Kherson region of Ukraine. Kakhovka still remains under occupation. They left in April 2022 after they've been threatened by the Russian forces, and they went to Berlin, where my mom still remains. And my dad, like I think so many Ukrainian dads in their 60s, he just couldn't stay in Europe. He said that he needed to find a sense of purpose, to do something physical.
Yeah.
So he went back to Ukraine. So he's in Ukraine in his home region of Mykolaiv.
And what's he doing there?
He's an engineer. So he bought an old tractor in Kharkiv, dilapidating tractor, and he's now turning it into a minesweeper.
Amazing. Yeah.
Just almost done, but it's been really wet, so he can't test it on the fields now. But yeah, so just waiting for the weather to get better.
Your brother joined the army despite having had barely any training. What can you tell us about his experiences?
Oh yeah, he had zero training. He joined like so many civilians in Kyiv.
How old?
He is 48.
Right.
Yeah. And he's been there for these 3 years. And but he's been moved from Kyiv, and now he's a lot closer to the front line.
And do you know much about the experiences he's been having?
Yeah, we talk regularly. What are the experiences like? He's not actively kind of fighting. He deals with the logistics and stuff, but he's still obviously in that very dangerous place. It's been tough.
Have you been able to see your family since the war began?
Yeah, we managed to see each other this Christmas, actually. We met in France.
Wow, gosh. Look, you wrote movingly in 2022 of your uncle who'd left Ukraine and settled in Moscow, and you described how he and his family were poisoned by propaganda, for instance, crying when hearing somebody insult Putin, and you cut ties with them. But what a remarkable thing for one family to be divided like that. This must be quite a common story.
I think if anybody's family, a lot of Ukrainians' families who ended up in Russia have been kind of, their minds have just completely been changed somehow. So yeah, I think it is a common story, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, you've been raising money for Ukraine through food projects, and your cooking takes inspiration from Ukrainian culture and history, which, as well as being a sort of a fundraising project, it's a very political thing to be reminding people that there is Ukrainian culture and history, for all that Russia says there isn't, right?
Yeah, of course, 100%. I feel lucky to kind of be an expert in an area that's easy to kind of keep people connected to us, to Ukrainians, as you say, to have this human face rather than the headlines or the constant talk of geopolitics or this recent talk of territories, which I really hate. The further along we go in the war, the more you hear kind of this association, almost like, oh, it's a territory. So, with hearing about my home region and my hometown being a territory is it's really hard to hear. And I just keep on kind of reminding people, please don't use this kind of language if possible, because it's not just the territory. I still have family and friends who live in occupation, and it's absolute hell living there. It's like being back in medieval times. There's no hospitals, no medical care, no schools open. If you say anything wrong, you either go in the basement or you get 12 years in prison. Russia just kind of imprisons you. So it's hell on earth right now in occupied territories, but let's not call them territories. Let's just kind of discuss and try to get those people's experiences and not forget about them.
Yeah, sure. And in boosting and reminding people of Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian food. What's a typical Ukrainian dish? What's the national dish?
I would say borscht is in our DNA, and it's been protected now by UNESCO, and it's I think it's the dish that, at least for me and my family, the one that gives us the most strength. When my mom and dad were still living in occupation at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, you know, sometimes I wouldn't hear from them for a couple of days. It was just so nerve-wracking, and you know, they were just processing everything that was happening. But one day, I will never forget that day when I received a message from my mom who said, "Today we cooked borscht," and it made us feel stronger.
Wow. Okay. Look, the news just this morning or yesterday, Volodymyr Zelensky said he would step down if there could be peace in Ukraine after Donald Trump called him a dictator. How was that for you? How did you feel about that?
About what he said?
Well, about first Donald Trump calling him a dictator.
I mean, the world is properly upside down right now, it seems, and it's really difficult to process. There's also like this barrage of information and stupid statements that so many people are making. So my reaction is not to let it get to me. This is kind of my personal little mission that I have at the moment, to keep mentally stable and healthy, and to kind of sift through information and not to let things like that overwhelm me. And Zelensky, good on him for saying that.
Is there a strong sense of betrayal from Donald Trump's willingness to negotiate with Vladimir Putin and cutting Ukraine out of the negotiations?
I'm hoping that I'm still not losing hope that it's just all loads of talk. It's just overflowing of information, and that I can't accept that something that there will be no support for Ukraine, whether it's America or Europe. I think something will happen eventually, and the common sense and kind of people's decencies and governments' resolve will prevail.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, I mean, a lot of the kind of peace deals that are being talked about, albeit tentatively at the moment, generally talk about land being given up by Ukraine, particularly in what you were saying about these aren't just territories. These are places where people live. These are places that are part of the nation's soul. What do you think about some kind of land deal for peace?
I don't think that we'd go with that. I don't believe that Zelensky would go with that. I know that Ukrainians would not go with that. Today I saw kind of a meme online, and it said "Ми втомлені, але ми незламні," which means we are tired, but we are unbreakable. And I think definitely one of the things is not to give in to peace talks that involve giving up territories, because they're not territories. We still have Ukrainian people living there. They're still our homes and our grandparents' graves and our culture and our gardens and our homes and everything that my parents have worked for their whole life, and so many more Ukrainians, But crucially, there are still people who remain in occupation, and we cannot give them up just like that.
Finally, Olia, when this phase of the war began, when there was the full-scale invasion 3 years ago, when you looked ahead 3 years, what did you see? I mean, do you look back now that you're shocked it lasted so long, or are you filled with pride that it's lasted so long?
Oh, I don't know if I wish that it never lasted so long, as in I wish that it was all over by now. But what I have learned in the past 3 years is to take things step by step. I think this is, and I realized quite early on that unfortunately it will be a marathon rather than a sprint. And within this marathon, you train. So you train yourself mentally. You keep your brain plastic, and you try not to get overwhelmed, and you keep going. This is what we need to do. Those of us who haven't been affected, like other Ukrainians who have lost their families or lost their friends, etc. So this is my mission to keep going.
Well, wishing you every strength. Thanks very much for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you.
Olia Hercules. She's a Ukrainian food writer. Great to speak to you.